Let's go to the individuals that got the appointment so far and get your thoughts on maybe which one you're most excited about. Outside, obviously, we've already talked about Pete. So Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, okay? Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth. Attorney General, AG, Matt Gaetz. Interior Secretary, Doug Burgum. Health and Human Services, RFK Jr. Veterans Affairs, Doug Collins.
Amazing.
Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. Energy Secretary, Chris Wright. Commerce Secretary, contenders, there's a bunch of them right now, Linda McMahon, Brooke Rollins, a bunch of names. Then you got Department of Government Efficiency, right? Doge, Elon Musk and Vivek. What a duo.
Yeah.
CIA Director, John Ratcliffe. Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz. UN Ambassador, Lee Stefanik. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff. EPA Head, Lee Zeldin. Solicitor General, Dean John Soar.
I was hoping I was going to get the call on that one.
By the way, that's a big position. Nobody knows about how.
Well, let's talk about it. I want to hear about it. FCC Chair Brandon Carr, I think that was just yesterday. Chief of Staff Susie Wiles. Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller. White House Counsel William McGinley. Caroline Leavitt.
Oh, I can't wait for
She's a stud.
Yeah,
Communications Director Stephen Chung, who was here, by the way, that day when he came through. Assistant to the President Sergio Gore. Your thoughts and who excites you the most out of all these names?
Well, who excites me the most is actually the big names. It is for example, RFK. Because here's my belief. I don't think that we're on the edge of some cliff where the United States government collapses. I think this thing has become such a behemoth, it's uncontrollable. The incremental change on the margins doesn't get it done. Simple competency doesn't get it done. That's a Mitt Romney-esque vision of America, a Bain consultant. Let's just make sure we get some competence back in charge. And by the way, that would be great because obviously we don't have that today. But I want people who are disruptors. That's what I want. I want real disruptors that can effectuate real change. And even that we have to be a little bit skeptical. Can even an RFK make real change? Because as you pointed out earlier in the show, Pat, the lobby is going to be massive. The pharmaceutical lobby, the food industry lobby, they're going to fight tooth and nail against anything that is to be done by RFK. Same thing for Pete at the Pentagon. You're talking about $850 billion budget. Now, by the way, Pete can do three important things. Get DEI woke out of the military, turn it back into a meritocratic institution, refocus, as you pointed out, Vinny, the purpose of the United States military, which is to absolutely destroy our enemy.
100%.
It's not a social experiment.
Yep.
It's not the world's police force. It is laser focused on the mission, which is destroy our enemy. Yep. And then I hope, the Pentagon has missed, I know there's something we could talk about today, but 7 straight audits, Pat. 7 in a row audits. Meaning they can't even quantify how much money they are spending. They don't know where it is. Now, that's the biggest job of all.
And they laughed about it yesterday on a clip.
Who's they?
You see the woman from the Pentagon that actually
she thinks it's a joke. She $890 billion.
And she laughed about it.
Yeah, almost $1 trillion.
Was it Jon Stewart? Was it when Jon Stewart asked her about it?
That's insulting, obviously.
Her?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, she giggled. She giggled about, she's like, I don't know. That's not my...
3 minutes. Let's see.
Audits and waste, fraud, and abuse are not the same thing. So let's decompose these pieces.
Please educate me on
sure.
What
so an audit is exactly what you just described, which is, do I know what was delivered to which place?
Right.
The ability to pass an audit or the fact that the DOD has not passed an audit is not suggestive of waste, fraud, and abuse.
Really?
That is completely false right there. So
what is
now is a question of it's suggestive that we don't have an accurate inventory that we can pull up of what we have where.
What? Then what do we?
That is not the same
like in the hands of the Taliban.
We can't do that because waste,
or
fraud,
left
and
on the
abuse.
tarmac
This is real.
in
Look.
Afghanistan.
So, in my world, that's waste.
Yeah.
How is that waste?
Yeah, look, she's
If
shocked.
I give you $1 billion and you can't tell me what happened to it, that to me is wasteful. That means you are not responsible.
Look at her.
But if you can't tell me where it went, then what am I supposed to think? And when there has been reporting, this is not. Look, I'm not saying this is on you, and that you caused this. But I think it's a tough argument to
I'm pretty
make
sure I
that
didn't cause it.
but you're laughing about it.
$850 billion budget
What's so funny?
to an
It's
organization.
not so funny.
That's
This is
an
American
offense.
taxpayer dollars. This is deficit. This is future debt for our grandchildren. This is all
Rob, who's
this,
that
and this
lady?
is like a
Who is
chuckle.
she?
That's actually, I've seen that clip. That's been around for a couple years, but that just goes to show the point how long we've been missing the audits
Years.
on
Yeah,
the DOD.
you just nailed it. It's 7 years.
I thought she was Deputy Defense Secretary Hicks.
That was a Kamala-esque laugh, meaning it wasn't about humor, Pat. Like, she wasn't laughing because she thinks it's funny. That's a defensive and embarrassed laugh.
Oh, I totally get it.
That's
I
a
still don't want to
deflection
see a
laugh.
I mean, to
Yeah.
me, it's your job. Figure the whole thing out. Like, I mean, why are we spending all this money? But by the way, so in other words, I have a monthly board meeting with my investors who gave me $10 million, and they say, "Hey, Pat, what happened to the $10 million? You guys failed another audit." It doesn't mean we failed the audit. It means we just can't figure out exactly where the money went.
Yeah, the spreadsheet's
No
off.
shit. I gave you the money. I need to know where it went. I get it, but we didn't fail an audit. Those are two different
We didn't
things.
waste it, but where is
Yeah.
it? I can't say.
We can't say it's a magic
By the
trick.
way, this is why when you put a bunch of free market guys in, they don't speak her language.
Right.
Her language is no accountability. The language of capitalism is 100% accountability. You ran out of money. Guess what? Go raise money, go raise debt, put some of your own money, or file bankruptcy and shut down the business. What do you want to do? Those are your options. Here it's like, no, it's not a big deal. Why are you saying something like that 7 times in a row? Who's your favorite appointment, Tom, out of all these folks that we just talked about?
Really, my favorite, I have to say, is RFK Jr. because of the ability to make a few small moves that will be very disruptive. My wife's a teacher. We've strong feelings about the studies that have been out there about the amount of food additives and the things that are in processed food and the impact on attention deficit and things for kids. And I believe he's already making an impact. I love RFK right where he is because he can do just a couple things that I think are going to change. This week we read about the box of Fruit Loops. Fruit Loops in Canada. So say what we will about Canada, and there's a lot we can say about that maniac and everything up there. But if you look at the Fruit Loops in Canada and the Fruit Loops in the United States, where the color is on the product comes from chemicals in the United States. It has to be natural sources in Canada, and they're not as brightly colored. Why is that? Because somebody in Canada said, you know what, these red dye chemicals, I don't think they should be in what's basically a children's food. And so I think there's going to be a lot of steps, but I'm excited about RFK. I believe he's a true believer. I believe he's a researcher. I believe he's informed. And I don't think he's just, he's more measured like an attorney than bombastic running to the microphone. And so I love that pick for its disruptive ability. I also really like Tulsi Gabbard right where she is.
Yeah, and again, piggyback, because I have two, Tom. One of them being RFK. And what people aren't understanding, it's like, where's the state of the country's health right now? Where are we? We're the most obese we've ever been. Mental health is out of freaking control. Right. The guy that's in right now, and they're talking about he doesn't have experience. Who's the guy that's in right now? Xavier Becerra. He's a lawyer with zero healthcare background at all, and that's why we're in the state that we're in. And who's his assistant? Rachel Levine, a biological male who pretends to be a woman who actually was pressured medical organizations to eliminate age restrictions for transgender surgeries. That's who's in charge of our health. And that's number one. So I can't wait for him to come in. And he has freaking blood in the game. The guy's father and uncle were killed. You know what I mean? Because they're trying to represent our country. And then the other one,
Preach.
I think, is Merrick Garland leaving, Matt Gaetz coming in. Merrick Garland, one of the worst. Him and Biden weaponized the DOJ to go after parents at school board meetings, labeling them terrorists, okay? And Catholics who are pro-life, all right? That's my favorite one, Pat, is RFK and Merrick Garland going bye-bye and Matt Gaetz coming in.
We have to give respect also to Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, but it's not an official department yet.
Yeah, they will be.
This is what I'm excited about this. Obviously, we need efficiency in government. But my question is, what's the hammer? That's the big question on that. We can't just have a study. We did that in the 80s with Reagan. We can't just come back with, oh, these are all the inefficient branches of government, and here's our suggestions, Congress, go act. There has to be an enforcement mechanism.
They're not that type, though.
No,
They're both operators. Play this clip, Rob. They're both operators.
I want to get your take on how this begins. Sure. What are you looking to cut right from the beginning?
So first is we want to go right in through executive action to do the failures of the executive branch that need to be addressed. Because the dirty little secret right now, Maria, is the people we elect to run the government, They're not the ones who actually run the government. It's the unelected bureaucrats in the administrative state. That was created through executive action. It's going to be fixed through executive action. Think about the Supreme Court's environment over the last several years. They've held that many of those regulations are unconstitutional at a large scale. Rescind those regulations, pull those regs back, and then that gives us the industrial logic to then downsize the size of that administrative state. And the beauty of all of this is that can be achieved just through executive action without Congress. Score some early wins, and then you look at those bigger portions of the federal budget that need to be addressed one by one. So I think that's one way to think about this is how can the president of the United States, who's been elected with a historic mandate, actually do the thing that the voters have voted for? They haven't voted for incremental change here this time, Maria. We have voted for sweeping change, and the voters actually deserve to get it. And we're focused on how to do that as early and as quickly as possible.
So President-elect Trump just said on that soundbite that you're going to make recommendations. So you're going to make recommendations in terms of where to cut after all that you've just said. Then what?
Look, we're not going to be cutting ribbons. We're going to be cutting costs. And so those recommendations are going to be on a real-time basis. But I do want to take a big step back and understand, for people to understand the scope of this problem. Over $500 billion that's spent every year right now was not even authorized by Congress in the first place. The Pentagon has just failed its 7th consecutive audit, nearly $1 trillion of budget. They can't even tell you where it goes. So I think part of this is exposing for the public the extent of that rot and waste, but then to take steps first through executive action and then laying the groundwork for broader change through legislation.
So not to take too much. I was with Maria that morning. She was having Vivek on. I said, please ask him that. This is what I'm talking about, the hammer. I said, so the then what? Vivek lays out executive action, regulatory stuff. That's how they can get a lot done. Here's a humble suggestion. Elon Musk has what? What are we at now? $350 billion, something like that?
Yeah, he's up there.
$1 billion in primary fund support for any challenger to a congressman who does not support real effective change through legislative action. Some of it is going to have to come down to legislative action. Power of the purses in Congress. You can do executive action, as Vivek lays out. You can go to the Supreme Court with your Solicitor General and try to challenge the constitutionality of a lot of these things, but you are going to have to get action done through Congress. And you got to have a hammer with these guys. And that hammer is losing an election and Elon perhaps funding challenges.
You just mentioned Solicitor General. Why don't you share in straight up terms for all of the people that are listening the importance of that position? Because that's not a position people hear about and they don't understand, but it's the gatekeeper to our Supreme Court.
Well, you think it's the Attorney General that would do this, but he's got a bigger job to handle. The Solicitor General is just the guy that goes right there in front of the Supreme Court and makes the case. He argues. So I don't know if you've ever listened to him during Obamacare, big ones. They stream all that. The Supreme Court.
C-SPAN.
Yeah, and he's the guy you're going to hear arguing it. So he makes the case, makes the oral arguments in front of the Supreme Court. I think I have enough experience dealing with Stephen A. Smith and others. I think this could have been my job.
But that's a big deal. The right cases get in front of the court, and now we have the right court to hear it.
Great. But again, when you hire doers, things get done. But they have to also learn it's slightly different than business. In business, you make a call, you call the shot, people move. Yeah. In politics, you can't call and it gets done. You got a certain process you got to go through where the speed is slower. So how they adjust as entrepreneurs in a very slow business and how they get it done is for Elon to get up there and say, yeah, oh, really? You want to do this? No problem. Hey, this guy here who's a congressman in this area, don't reelect him because he's going to have that kind of power. You do not want that hammer to come to you, which he's going to be doing. By the way, the one job that I think we're not, maybe there's plenty of great jobs that we're talking about, very important guys that are in here. I think the chief of staff is the person that's in your ear that you're talking to, where you get to ask the question of, what do you think? What do you think about this person? What do you think about that person? The way that she set it up to say, look, I don't need any attention. I don't need to speak on stage. But allow me to close the door. They have to come through me. Don't keep that open door policy the way you did in 2016. Let me flush some of this out.
Susie Wiles.
Susie Wiles. I think she is.
She's so understated. You do know who her dad is, right?
Of course, Summerall. Yeah. But when you are an operator, a type A D on the disc, and a guy that gets stuff done, and you find a Susie Wiles, it's life-changing. If she's the right person that you trust, things get done and the right decisions made. In 2020, I'll never forget, we're doing our podcast. We had 47,000 viewers. Concurrent viewers, we had 6,700. We're at the office. We leave. I go home the next day. News comes out. Biden's probably going to be the president. Of course, it takes a few weeks. Everybody around me is panicking. What's going to happen? COVID, Biden, what are we going to do? We step back. We put a plan together. And the last 4 years have been the most ridiculous 4 years of our lives because we sequenced everything out. 15 moves, business, personal life, finances, all of it. Now that Trump's president, that same strategy that worked in 2020 should be different than the one we have in 2024. Tonight at 6 o'clock, I'm hosting a webinar called the No Matter What webinar. Tom and I will be sharing with you guys what we're planning on doing the next 4 years and some of the strategies that you ought to consider doing as well for yourself the next 4 years, especially when we're coming down to business planning season. Right now it's November 19th. January 1st is going to be here like in the next 6 weeks. And those of you guys that got big plans in 2025, planning starts now. Go to vtwebinar.com, vtwebinar.com. Put it in your calendar. It's only 5,000 people that can be on. We don't have it more than 5,000 people. We'll start at 6 o'clock. I'll give a PowerPoint presentation to you guys, and then we'll go from there. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.